All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Natural Podcast. I'm here with Kef. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a while now. We're going to be going over spiritual living and what it means for us. So, Kef, I know you lived a monastic life, for, I don't really remember exactly where you said. So I just want to go over maybe a little bit of that, and then what are your thoughts on spirituality and what did that really do for you?
So for me, going into the monastic life, I did it more for myself than a religious or even emotional cause. For Thai people, they go into the monastic life for their mother, like as a thank you after when you turn like 18 or so, you go in for like a month or so just to show your mother gratitude for the 9 months you're in her stomach and such, all the shit she's kind of done for you. But I didn't really want to do it just for cultural purposes because I feel like it would inhibit my learning. So I only chose to go into the monastic life when I found actually the right teaching monk or, the person who would be able to explain to me Buddhism right, because I don't have the strongest Thai language. But, I went there and I started at first just living with the people at the temple. At one point, they told me there was an ordination process where I can become a monk. And so I decided, I'm already living there. Why not just try out what they're living right next door to me, And as I went into the practice, it was a practice of observation of self. So as much as you may see flaws with the system, the first time around, I took it fully. I fully engulfed myself in the lesson, basically just, tried to be the best monk I could. And as much as that really gave me some insights on kind of like minimalistic living, thinking, using energy, and just, being compassionate and like self-retained, I noticed that there wasn't enough emotions actually in the monastic life, which I mean that's what they go for. But to me, from what I've learned later on, emotions actually are a part of what makes us humans. And so these monks, they practice controlling emotions so that they can become less human in a sense, because they're trying to go to what they call sort of like a nirvana, like another place. Mm-hmm. I didn't look too deep into that part because, everybody has a different life they want to live. Some monks, they want to go to this nirvana place. Some monks, they just want to live this life and be happy this life. So I had to first realize that not all monks were the same. Not all monks have the same goals with their lifeline within this life, or, some people might just be here for a few instances just to learn right now, and then they'll leave and go on to their next journey. So I've seen monks come and go, and I've also seen monks who stay there a long time, a lifelong monastic life. And they do help a lot of people. They reach out to a lot of people. And I had to personally get out at one point just because I don't think there was enough emotional understanding in the monastic life. I wouldn't say that's all true with all temples, because I've been to other temples that actually praise more or teach more about understanding your emotions and stuff. So I don't believe that all monastic life or all monks or temples are perfect or up to they're not all kind of like the same level. So what I really like to emphasize, I guess, is when you go to, learn like a nursing school or learn yoga, it doesn't matter what country you're in. I could be in an Asian country in like India where yoga started, but if the teacher isn't, enrooted with the teachings and really like took the time to there's just different levels of teaching, different levels of understanding. Yeah. And so I had to actually go to different temples to learn different lessons, because one monk, one temple wouldn't be able to teach me this lesson. So then I'd be like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't just stay here and expect them to learn something, then teach me. If, if they don't already know it, then, they themselves are still students. So, monkhood is really a state of learning. They go in there to learn from themselves. So a lot, not a lot, but the monkhood the monastic place that I go to, sometimes they get a little too like trying to promote Buddhism, which is great. But I've noticed that if you don't take enough time to work on yourself and you're too outwards with trying to spread something you don't fully have developed yourself, I feel it's like it's become more of a almost like a show, like Buddhism these days. Like I've gone to temples and it's just like they do certain things that just, it seems like it's for the people just to be happy, but it doesn't really teach the raw truths. Certain truths bring on suffering, bring on things that make you resist the teaching, because obviously you're being taught something new. You already have information in your head that is conflicting, so you have to either get rid of that new thing, or you have to have the capability of unlearning something and then relearning something new that's more beneficial to you. So it taught me not to just believe in institutions and religious institutes for my learning and my education, because even though they were monks, there were other monks and even non-monks who were more developed in terms of a meditative practice than the monkhood that I went into.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. Now that you say it, like, it makes sense that there would be different types of training, I guess you could say. But it's also interesting that you said that they themselves, when you're learning from a certain monk, they themselves didn't know everything they needed to know. And I like that you said that, they were students. I feel like everybody is always a student. No matter who you are, you're always a student. That day
Yeah.
you say, oh, I don't need to learn anymore. That's really the day that you stop growing. And that, in my eyes, that's when you start dying, because it's the law of the universe. If you're not growing, you're basically dying. You can't really be stagnant, But yeah, I also want to brush up on, like meditation and stuff like that. And I know you're saying a little bit of like you were learning through the monks. Like, how did they really go about meditation? And like, I know you said that I know we talked earlier before, like you're constantly in a meditative state, and I believe that too. Like I'm constantly in a meditative state too. I don't meditate as often as I used to, where I have that time of the day where like I solely do that. I'll do like a nap and stuff like that, which is very similar. I'll get myself in a meditative state, but I don't really so much do that, meditative thing that, where you're sitting there and like trying to clear the thoughts. I kind of do that already now on a constant basis. And it's like crazy the difference, that it makes for me. Like I'm not stuck in my head. A lot of people, when they think meditation, they're like, oh, that's stupid. You sit there, do nothing for a little bit. That's exactly what you need to do. Exactly. So you're like sitting there in your head, you're not in your head, but like, I guess you could say in your head, but like blanking out your head and not thinking about all the things that are happening in your future and your past, and also, like not letting that anxiety of the future come to you. And of course, that's sometimes a good thing because it's preparing you for something, and then that depression of the past, and the past is good because that's what teaches you how to live for the future, so you got to use that more of as a reference. But living in the now is really just an incredible thing. And, being in that meditative state, I think is very, very important. So I want you to kind of go over for me, if you can, how the monks did that, because I'm kind of interested on that. And then maybe you can go over, how you do it as well.
Okay, yeah. So again, the temple that I went to, they're called Dhammakaya or something, monk. Each monastic place, sector, they kind of have their own type of meditation techniques that they will teach to the people, whatever they're good at teaching at. They kind of go around the same gist, it's all meditation type, but they teach different like lifestyles and things with it. But so for the one that I went to, they taught a 7 point one, where you start at one nostril, whether it's the left or right. I forget which one. One is for female, and then one is for male. And then from there, you kind of put like, well, you envision like a ball of light that you can inhale. Then it goes kind of to another point towards here, towards the center of your nose. Then as you exhale, it goes in towards your brain. So this is more like visualization technique. And you go deeper, you bring that ball of light into kind of like your throat area. I think then it goes like a little bit around your heart. And then they really focus on 2 finger widths 2 finger width above the belly button. There's supposed to be this point there that they say is the center of your body, your soul, your focus. So they're about persistence in meditation, in terms of if you keep persistently meditating there at that spot, that you will like reach your enlightenment. You know, it's their concept is kind of like continual work at something will get the results done. And it works for many people. This is a big temple in Thailand. They have a lot of followers, and you know, people have experienced miracles from it. For me personally, that point, the reference points that I have been able to meditate on, I have been able to experience certain things from there. I haven't gotten to a point yet where I can completely say whether everything they say about that specific point does give you all that, or if there's other points of meditation that you can meditate on and get those same results. But yeah, so it's center of the body for them, kind of just like breathing and, you know, I think it was just silencing the mind and just being there kind of in the body kind of thing. To me, you know, visualization works for me just because I have a very, what you call it, my learning style, you know, is very visual. So when I visualize something, I can, you know, it's easy for me to feel it and all that. But I feel like for certain people, it might not be as easy. So, you know, I feel like that's why there needs to be different meditation techniques. The one that most people do, I think, and the one that you were talking about where you don't do as much anymore is kind of like a cleansing meditation. So it's kind of like, you know, learning how to clean your room. You know, it's kind of like the basics of life. It's just something you need to know as a person. But as time goes by, once you know how to keep things clean, you don't clean your room every day because there's just too much time, you know. Eventually, you just keep things clean. As you finish something, you just throw it away. So it's kind of like meditation. Once you're finished with a thought, once you're finished with an activity, unless there's something for you to actually achieve there, you know, you don't have to throw it away, but it's like, it doesn't have to be on the frontal part of your mind because you don't need that to be processing that right now. So it's like throwing away a used piece of tissue because you've already finished with it. I mean, if you use half a tissue, you know, you can be conservative and you can use that rest of the part to wipe off like a piece of table or something that might have a small part, you know. But essentially it's just it's become more autonomous for you. I forget the actual word, you know, automatic. It's an automatic function for people who have meditated or practice meditating. You know, at one point they don't, not that they don't see the point, but they find themselves not doing it as much anymore, mainly because it's become a part of them, you know. And the best way I can relate to that actually is there was this video I saw that was talking about, oh, you know, I used to have a hard time getting out of bed and all this stuff. And the quote that always gets me out of bed and was, what was it, Newton's first law or something? An object at rest stays at rest. You know, an object in motion stays in motion. So, I mean, if you're sleeping and you're at rest and you have no energy to get up, there's nothing you can do except get up that will give you that momentum. So, you know, kind of lost my train of thought there for a sec. So with meditation.
No, I get what you're saying. It's interesting though, like that, what you're saying, because it's so true. You know, a lot of people, especially like some of my clients and stuff, they're like, oh, I just can't find that. Like, how do you find that motivation to get to the gym? I'm like, I just go, you know, I just go do it. And then it doesn't have to be the gym, but I just go wherever it is that I'm going to go and do it, you know? And so many people, they're stuck in their thoughts and they sit there and they like, think about things and think about things, analyze all this stuff, and they're like, oh, this could go wrong. You just got to do it, you know? Like, that's one
Yeah.
of the things I've adopted really well this year is just do it, you know?
Yeah. Like
Go for
Nike, shop
things. Like,
above that, like, yeah, just
yeah, if you
do it.
stay at rest and you don't take action, you're going to stay at rest and not take action. It's true. And it's so simple. And like, that's one thing I love about, you know, spirituality is that, you know, all these things are so simple. Like, to not think, that's such a simple thing. It's so stupid, you know. It's like, of course it's like such a simple thing to do. Like, why is it so hard? But we make it hard, you know. In reality, like, you know, we're kind of, I guess, kind of programmed as we grow up by all these things that are like coming at us and all these things that are happening to us. And, you know, we're told to be scared of this and that with all these news and stuff like that. And it's like, that's
To me,
just
it's like turning on a video
mind.
game. It's
What was
like,
it?
I mean, sorry.
I didn't hear what
Um,
you said.
to me, you know, the whole anxiety thing, the whole like thinking thing is almost kind of the same concept of turning on a video game, to where like if you don't have the video game turned on, you're just sitting there and you're just doing whatever, you might be bored or whatever. Once you turn on the video game, you get all the excitement, anxiety, and all the feels and emotions that come with that game. The need to finish the game, to be number one, like all the whole 9 yards comes in. But once you turn that game off, all those feelings only belong to that game. It doesn't belong to you. You know, it's bringing those emotions up in you, but it's not like something that's a part of you. You know, you only get
Yeah,
these emotions up so you can do things. So you don't need to have those anxiety and emotions when you, I mean, if you're not going to use it. Anxiety is helpful. You can use that energy, that shakiness, to really like be
exactly.
more
Yep.
observant.
No, it's so
And
funny you say that, and like that's literally what I do. Is I use that, you know, anxiety as like excitement. Like one of my biggest fears was like public speaking for a while, and like one of the recent jobs I got, I have to do it every day. So not every day, but when I work, and it's like now I use that as excitement. In the beginning, I remember I was using it a lot as excitement. It's not as bad as it used to be. And I still get a little,
yeah.
but like you got to. That's the thing. You got to use that as excitement. You know,
Hmm.
whenever you're feeling that, don't suppress it. Don't try to fight it. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's what I used to do. Because I used to get like horrible panic attacks where like I would have to like leave restaurants and leave places. And it was
Mm.
because I was fighting it and fighting it, you know. And that's the thing. When you try to fight something,
Hmm.
you know, that's when it's really, it makes it even harder. And like one,
Yeah.
there's that Bruce Lee quote, which like I live by now, which is become like water, you know, just, you know, adapt to your surrounding. What does water do?
Hmm.
It adapts to whatever it is. It goes through. It doesn't resist, you know, and
Yeah.
that's
Water, mountains, you know, even mountains, they're hard, they're rock, but water shapes mountains.
exactly 100%, 100%. Yeah.
And I wanted to touch back a little bit onto that kind of just do it thing. Just because you know, I feel like there's a time gap that you can do that, and that time gap, as it increases, you know, you miss those moments of opportunity. So what I just wanted to share was my experiences as the time gap between my thoughts and actions kind of like got shorter. So I used to be actually really just all in my head. Like before I do anything, it'd take me months or years to even like think that it'd be, you know, okay to do. And as meditation came by and as I, you know, tried to do less thinking, I realized that, you know, these leaps of faith, like extreme leaps of faith, you know, we were talking about them the other day, really do, you know, prove itself to be like worth the leap. You know, you do fly when you leap, you know, in a
Hmm.
sense. So, you know, I used to have a window of usually, okay, I told myself within 2 to 3 seconds of thinking, you know, to do it right then. Because if I'm thinking longer than that, then it's going to be too late to even do it, you know. So if I do it within the two,
Exactly.
three
Yeah.
seconds, I think I still have that. But there's been times where 1 or 2 seconds is too long, to where, so I've had to shorten my time to where it takes a lot of trust. But now I trust myself with 2 to 1 second decisions now. Before it used to be 3 to 5 seconds. I've come down to where I can trust my 1 to 2 second decisions. You know, but it really gives you that sense of, you know what, I accept my consequences. And I think that's the biggest part, is learning how to accept consequences for your actions or your thoughts. Because, you know, we want to do something but we don't want the consequences. That's why we don't want to do it.
Hmm.
But we learn to Obviously there's are worse things that you could be doing than like, things that are helping people or just not harmful to others. But, those decisions that you may have to make on an instant, you may regret the consequences. But to be honest, I have gained so much more confidence in myself in accepting consequences in my 1 second decisions
Mm-hmm.
than I have enjoyed moments where I just didn't do something and just, thought, maybe I didn't have to do it. And just have never knowing whether it was right or wrong or consequence or rewards, whatever it is. Like, I can take the consequence because I know I tried versus, rather not take the consequence. The reward isn't worth it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I know exactly what you're saying. And that basically, like when I think about that, I think about breaking past your comfort zone, and
Yeah.
that's what that really crippled me when I had a lot of like my panic attacks and stuff, is I wasn't breaking past my comfort zone. I wasn't trying to do things that I was scared of doing.
Yeah.
And like a good example of that is be like a person, not going up to a girl that he thinks is attractive and could possibly, like have a good relationship with, let's say, like he just
Mm-hmm.
missed his chance when he could have just easily said something. It's like
Yeah.
that same thing right there. Like you need to break past that comfort zone as much as possible. And when you're constantly doing that, when I'm like constantly breaking past my comfort zone and doing things, like making
You
that
feel
call.
alive.
Yeah, exactly. You feel alive. And then like after you're done, you're like, holy crap, like I feel good. And there's sometimes, like you'll do it and you make yourself look like an idiot, but then you're like, oh,
You
okay. Use
because
that.
you did it. Because you
Yeah,
wanted to
exactly.
do
But
it.
you did it. You feel good, but you did it. But at the same time, you learn from what you did wrong. You go,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe next time I shouldn't be like that when I do it. And so you
Mm-hmm.
keep learning, you break past your comfort zone multiple times and you become an expert. That's really how you become good at anything.
Making mistakes.
Exactly. Making those mistakes. And that's what people are just so afraid of. And like, that's really like such a powerful thing. And, I'm
Yeah.
so glad I've learned it at my age and, I'm able to apply that and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do want to touch back on that meditative thing. Like, I
Okay.
know we were talking the other day about like transmuting energy and stuff like that. And I know also like with chakras in the body, a lot of people like think about that stuff and they're like, oh, that's some like hippy dippy shit. But in reality, all it is, like we were saying, is the hormone glands in the body. Basically the
Endocrine system.
endocrine system. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what I was looking for. So that's basically what chakras are, and like that's always been to me is those parts of the body, and you can really focus on them, especially when you're meditating. At least I've been able to, and just like feel that part of your body and like allow energy almost to flow through it and feel it. When you're
Mm-hmm.
getting into that meditative state. That's one thing I used to do a lot when I would meditate, is just focus on those different areas, and I'd feel that euphoric feeling. I don't know about you, like what your experience is with that.
You mean like chakra meditation?
Hmm.
Um, I went through a phase for about a year or two where I was doing a lot of, I guess, yeah, there was chakra meditations.
Hmm.
I had a lot of blockages in my heart and my solar plex chakra,
Hmm.
actually, as well as throat chakra. So I actually worked on these three chakras a lot. I always had a lot of, you know, energy flowing through here. And obviously, I mean, it sounds like that's ideal. You want that. It wasn't for me. Just too much here is kind of like having an upside down pyramid. So much
Hmm.
thoughts. I mean, with my body, like barely able to like keep it straight. It's like, it's just imbalance, so I had to rework and start from the bottom up, start focusing on meditating with my body
Hmm.
over with, because the first time my friend Blake told me about chakra meditation, I was asking him, he told me that he had did it here, he had felt a little pop and all that stuff. So it's okay, let's try some chakra meditation. I took him to the temple and we were just meditating, and I had no place that I was going to concentrate first. I had a tingly feeling, up here, so I decided, why not go with the feeling? And I tried to do what he said happened to him, was just like a little pop, something breaking through. So I was just trying to push this feeling kind of like out my forehead so I can like feel that pop or something. And man, it felt like I was trying to take like an ice pick and like just trying to like poke through my head with it, to the point where I was getting dizzy and I had to stop. I told my friend, and he was like, you should start with the root chakra, the bottom one, which is basically, you know, it helps with your physical body. And now you think of a pyramid, the reason why the pyramid is, you know, one of the most stable shape is because the bottom base is so big, and the top is just, you know, all the wind that's going, there's nothing that's going to like tip it over, you know? So if you really have a good foundation, you know, and you have strong, you know, well-controlled, balanced emotions, you know, in the middle, and then just enough thought to get things done, because remember, everything's actually about action, not just thoughts. You know, you have those little thoughts, you're balanced in emotion, so you're not too crazy or not too repressed, and then you have a good foundation to actually get everything done. So yeah, I started from the bottom, and I had to first, you know, try to heal my body and my emotions, because well, it was body and energy, because without my body, you know, being physically fit and having the energy, I can't do anything. I can't work. I can't, you know, all I can do is like sleep and eat, you know. So before I can even work on myself, I had to really learn about foods and just like retaining energy. Now, when I talk about energy, I usually don't eat for energy. A lot of the times I guess you can say drink water, or I guess meditate. I'll sit around a lot
You
and
know, it's
gather.
funny you say that. I just want to brush up on. I heard something of a guy who hadn't eaten for like I can't remember how many years, and like
I think
he
it's like
literally,
60, 70 years.
yeah, exactly. And he just
Yeah.
lived off of like, you know, through his like mind, basically, you know, like meditating and lowering his metabolism with his mind, and that's how he
Yeah.
was able to do that for so long.
I read into it a little bit, because I mean, I hear all crazy stuff in terms of stories from my monkhood, but you know, to me, there is always a scientific explanation for everything. Everything in the monk community, spirituality, God, everything to me has always had. I've always been able to find a scientific formula to kind of like, not formula, you know, like everything is in a
I get what you're
way.
saying. Yeah, like a scientific, like reasonable way of explaining about it. You know, which a lot
Yeah.
of people get turned off by that. You know, whenever you say like scientific reason, people are like, "Oh God," you know, like you know, that takes away from God, because like there's that faith, but like there is still that scientific aspect to it where
Yeah.
it's things that are proven. Like we're already starting to like prove that we are telepathic. You know, we're already starting to prove what meditation does to the body. You know, like that's the
And
scientific.
science only proves things. It's not like science is there because it's a thing to be created. Science is a way of just seeing things. It's a way of, you know, just
Being able to
identity.
explain things, yeah, exactly. Identify things more.
Yeah.
Where,
So, you know, you know, even Buddha, you know, they say that he was a scientist in a way, because he wanted to know what was going on, because, you know, the way his life was, everything was just too happy for him. So he literally left his palace, his wife, his kids, like in the middle of the night, and, or at least from what I've told, and just like rode off to find himself. And he was very, you know, scientific. He wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to believe in faith, because he already had like a perfect life in the sense of, you know, most societies would consider. So, you know, it wasn't okay for him to just believe in faith. So Buddha actually wasn't the most faithful person. You know, he was actually more skeptic than anything, which I actually liked about him, because one of my favorite quotes from him was, you shouldn't believe anything anyone says unless it resonates with you, not even if he himself said it, Buddha, you know?
mhm.
So to me, like, even though these monks have taught me all these different things, I take everything with a grain of salt. You know, sometimes I'll believe something that a peasant would say, not exactly like that, you know, like versus, you know, ordained monk, you know, just
Mhm.
because people experience different things. And, you know, one of Buddha's path at one point was a beggar. He was walking around hungry, you know, and he was trading lessons for food. You know, he would offer teachings, and they would give him whatever they wanted as thanks.
Yeah,
Um,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
Also, I remember you saying like one thing, and that really like hit me. Like, if you can't teach it to a kindergartner, you know, then you don't know it. And like
yeah.
that
You
is
don't know
true.
it well. I think Einstein said that one.
Yeah,
I
and
like that because, yeah,
God,
I've always tried to teach people the information I learned, but at one point I realized some information I just don't know well enough to teach yet, and I just had to accept that, and, you know, accept that I'm a student and there's still more to learn.
100%, definitely. I definitely also want to brush up over like attachment. That's one thing I find is good with spirituality. And I know you said something about minimalistic life. I actually did a podcast. I don't know if you heard that one on minimalistic life and how it can benefit people and how basically I live a minimalistic life. And I think that's really big when you look at spirituality, because like I know the movie Star Wars, you got Yoda and like all those characters that are very spiritual, and like one thing he says to Anakin when he's in the thing or when he's like in love with Padme or whatever, and he's going through all those changes, he's seeing all those visions, and then he's telling him not to be so attached to things, because that fear of losing will ruin you and break you and all that stuff, basically, that'll turn you into the dark side, and it's true. Like if you look at people, when they love someone and they feel like something's going to happen and they feel like they can save them and they have to do something horrible to save that person, it turns them into a bad person, when they were such a good person. And so not like that at all, I guess you could say. So it's really interesting, I think, attachment, and like people, that's the problem, is people get so attached to things nowadays, especially one thing I noticed was like a lot of like I know a lot of people in my family, they get really attached to things, and they have all these things in their house, and then they're just like holding on to them and they can't get rid of them because they're like, oh, it's an antique from so long ago.
Pay rent for a storage room for your things.
Exactly, yeah. And like we even brushed up on that on the minimalistic podcast, but it's just so crazy. People get really so attached to things, and it's like having an attachment to so many things is so toxic to you, especially when you're trying to be, spiritual. And like when I think spiritual, people get like that hippy dippy crap stuck in their head. That's not what it's about. It's about being like so present in that moment and happy and having that gratitude every day and just feeling that constant feeling of like just happiness, and it doesn't even have to be happiness, because it's not necessarily good to always feel happy. You kind of want those moments where you feel bad, but being able to understand those emotions and use them as like a leverage to make your life, a fulfilled one.
Yeah.
So, maybe you could brush up on your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So what came up to mind when you were talking about that, and what I think where my mind would go. I mean, I've only been in 2 relationships. I would only call it one because the first one wasn't too much of one for me. But when I would feel those times of, either losing that person, or just that, that feeling separated. So, obviously it feels good when you're in connection and when you guys are happy and all that stuff. But when you're not feeling connected, or when you're fighting, sometimes, we want to change that, in the sense of we want everything to feel better. But in order to change the situation for me, sometimes to make myself feel better, I would have to kind of like give up my morals. And I've tried that, and it actually made me feel worse. It would make her feel better, but it would make me feel worse, and make the situation better. But in my own soul, I was like dying. And so when I would try to separate from this person, she would obviously call out and try to reconnect and reattach, and which I would then try to pull away, and then it was just like back and forth. But at one point, I think what really comes down to it, and that what really put me out of that, oh, should I do this with her, or should I do that? Should I try to fix this? Because you can go around for like centuries trying to like work on a relationship. But to me, it was more, the underlying root of the relationship was so that I could fulfill my life purpose. Like, a relationship for me is a support system, someone I love that does exactly what I want to do in life. So, I was trying to go back to the roots, and, the point of the relationship is so that I can live my life to the fullest. Like I want to be able to express myself to my partner in any way and have her express the same way, but at the same time, be able to share that journey together. What if there are certain things that may not, be keeping us connected, that may have like some arguments and stuff. We can work on that, but we also have to accept there are certain things that may not be changeable, or there's certain things that you might just change your feelings and the things that you want, So like when I first met her, I wanted to be a yoga instructor. Right now, I could care less about being a yoga instructor, so it's, so if to me you fell in love with a yoga person and you realize you don't want to be doing yoga later, I mean, you could still be in love with her, and still want that path and not care that she does yoga and you do your own thing. And that's a perfect life. But if you, for some reason, only want, somebody that does yoga with you, essentially, at least for me, it's always been kind of like a life path kind of thing, someone that you can share your life with. And as much as I try to include this person into my life and into what I want to do, where she is and where I am, we just can't be doing those things together. And when I want to do my own thing to help myself grow, she needs my support in a way that is taking away from my life path. So I have realized it's not that I don't love her, it's that I do love her. I just also love myself, and I have to accept that I can try to make it work with someone that won't be happy with what I'm doing, because if she was already happy, then everything would be fine. So either I could work on it and kind of like have things kind of like go both our ways, or I just have to do more work on myself if I don't think I have the capability of, kind of meshing our lives together. Because I'm still young in the dating world, to be honest. Like, this is only my first real relationship.
I think anybody in their 20s and 30s, I mean, like, even me, like, I've been in many relationships as well, but like, you learn from every single one I've been in, it's made me a better person for the next thing. The next one, it could not happen till I'm 40, but I'm not going to rush into it and be in one just because I want to have that experience with someone. Like, a lot of people, that they'll be in relationships just for the sex and that feeling, because basically when you're with somebody, it enhances the the human experience. Like Tony Robbins says it like that, and that's basically what it is. It's just you're enhancing the human experience, and you want to be able to do that with someone that you really connect with and like feel the same way about with each other, and like, I think what's very important is, when you're looking for someone, you don't necessarily have to have like the same taste and everything, but having the same beliefs, I think, is very, very important. Like, it's not really easy to be with someone who has a religious belief about something, and like, let's say I'm very spiritual, because then we're going to fight on a lot of things. Like, they might think they need to get married and do this and have all these things, and their kids need to be Christian or something, whatever. I'm just giving an example. And then like, I might be like, I don't care about that. Like, I just want them to be happy with who they are, but that's her belief, and she needs to have that, and I think that's really what we got to look for, is that person that your beliefs line up, perfectly with. And, it's definitely not something you should rush into, because it's something that can be miserable if you just end up settling for what you get,
So, I mean, I am in for kind of like expressions of whether it's infatuation or love. I feel that if you are infatuated or in love with someone, even if you don't think you have the same belief, I think you owe it to yourself to at least inquire, whether it leads to not even a date, a friend, a date, 2 dates, a relationship, whatever it is. Even if it's just sex, to me, even like just sex can be an educational experience, because my first relationship was with someone younger, and I didn't get with her to be in a relationship. It ended up being a relationship because she believed that because we were having sex that we should be in a relationship. But for my most recent relationship, the reason why it actually mattered, whether in terms I was committed or in terms of whether I was ready, was because she was older. She was about 42. She has kids. So she was at a point in her life where she needed something stable. So it's like, I could become that stability, and we, it could all work out and be exceptionally great if that's what I was. Now, at the time, I didn't know myself. I wanted to provide that for her because, I'm a people pleaser. I wanted to help someone out. I was in love. But I realized that where I am in my life, I am not capable or ready or wants to commit to taking care of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So if she is able to take care of her kids while maintaining a relationship with me where she doesn't have to depend on me, that would be good. But it hasn't worked out that way in terms of, I think she does need a support system. And if I can't be it, then what's the point in us being together? It only makes things harder. So, but I do have times when I, obviously want to get back. Those like, just the comfort of having someone, being with someone that I'm in love with, the physical sensations as well. It's, it's all there. And it's not to say that like I can't, go back and experience that with her again, even if it's just for a short time. But I have to be honest with her to tell her that if I'm coming back to experience these emotions and feelings with you, it is for a temporary time. I'm not coming here to commit to you, and, until I think she's accepting that more and more, that I can't commit to anything right now. So I'm just trying to live my life. She seems to still want to be a part of it. She wants the relationship part, with, where I think that's where her attachment is. To me, I'm okay with us being friends, but, I don't know where things go, and, but for me, also with the non-attachment, that used to be my whole thing, and that actually got me into a lot of, I call it spiritual trouble. So, the monastic life is all about non-attachment. Actually, we had to do a little like saying in another language that actually disowned our parents. So actually, I was parentless. I was, I wasn't allowed, if you had a wife, you were disowning your wife. So basically, any children, parent, anything relation you had with humans, you were basically calling it off and saying, I am now in monastic life. I'm separating myself from the rest. And that concept was so they can feel that separation between being human and, a monk. But what caused that actually, what happened in that, what resulted from that actually was, I think, a loss in emotions, to where, you had that happiness / relaxation, calmness when everything was cool, but they didn't know how to deal with any other emotions because that's not what they teach there, So for me, I went into that, and non-attachment was super easy for me, that when I got into a relationship, I didn't really understand what a lot of the problems was, because personally, I never had any problems, but other people would. So what had happened was, actually, I didn't feel emotions. So if I did something that I thought was okay, but she felt the emotions of it, I would deny the emotions, basically, and just like blame it on her and be like, I'm not feeling these emotions. These are your emotions. And that's the only thing I want to touch on for non-attachment, is there's a difference between a balanced non-attachment and literally just being a serial killer and saying like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's what probably a lot of people might think of when they say, "Oh, not get attached to things." Like also what you just live there and like don't care for anything. That's not really what it is. You don't care for those things, but you're able to let go of those things and not let it cripple you. Like I love my mother. I'll do things for her. I have that attachment to her. I'll help her. But at the same time, I'm okay with like the let go. Like I know that eventually one day she's gonna die. And I've already accepted that in my mind, and it's such a horrible thing to say, but like that's what life is. You have to you can't really look at it as a horrible thing. It's just going on to the next thing. Whatever that next
transition
thing will be for you. Yeah, and then one last thing I wanted to brush up on. It's kind of good because we're on the topic already. So how they say attachment leads to that suffering.
Right.
And that's just really a crippling thing right there. But it's also good sometimes to go through that suffering because you learn, like that pain. It's good to experience pain because that's what kind of helps you change. Like when I'm like one thing in the past when I wasn't like living my life to my full potential, I'd be suffering, and, and I'd experience this pain. And it was really like realizing that I have to do these things to get out of that pain that really helped me get out of there, So I don't know what your experience is with that, but like, I think it's very important, for people to realize that too, is to let that pain of, suffering drive you to do something better and achieve that life that makes you feel more fulfilled.
Yeah. So right after the first monastic thing I went to, when I actually disrobed and got out of that monastic life, I was still living there, but just mainly so that I could practice this art of yoga. It wasn't completely yoga. It was more brain and body, it had to do with energy, to creating energy, and understanding emotions. But it was really a big change to go from something that was like completely like very low emotions to accepting emotions, accepting suffering, where over there they were kind of like almost trying to get away from suffering. I moved away from that practice and immediately jumped into a practice that encouraged pain and suffering. So they said, though, pain and suffering is kind of like a highlighter, like a marker, like a signal. When you have pain in your body, it's your body signaling you so that it knows where to send the troops or whatever the pain is, to where to heal, what needs to be healed. If you have pain in your shoulder, you can take all the painkillers you want, but it's not going to heal your shoulder. So you feeling that pain actually allows your autonomic system to heal that part of your body. Some may require more physical therapy, but like, if you have like a sickness in yourself, that's, you have those white blood cells and stuff to fight that. But if we don't feel a lot of our pain, if we don't feel a lot of our suffering, there's no room to grow or get better. So we tend to, go out of our bodies when something comes up. We try to really like protect ourselves and set up like a wall between our emotions, between our body, so that no one can like harm you. And so an example would be, okay, let's say you're doing push-ups. Well, I can only do 20 push-ups. We were taught, not me, but I'm saying we were taught to, okay, your brain is telling you to do 20 push-ups. Your brain is telling you this is all I can do. Just keep going and see what happens. So that was the thing. Even though your brain is telling you one thing, it was to test your brain. It was like, okay, my brain is saying I should stop now because this is how many, like, I can't do any more push-ups. Then what we were taught to do was to just do it and see what happens. What happens if your brain says, oh, if I keep doing push-ups, I'm going to die? What happens if you keep doing push-ups? You don't die. So then you say, well, I'm really going to die now if I keep doing push-ups. This is your brain talking to you. So I tell myself, okay, keep doing push-ups and see what happens. I keep doing push-ups and it'd be more sore, but I didn't die like my brain told me. So I had all these different things that my brain would try to stop me from doing push-ups or just from doing different activities. And as I was going through the pain and just like going through my brain telling me to stop, and I would just keep doing it. And my brain telling me, you can't, don't do this. You can't handle it. It's too much. And you just keep doing it. And what was too much becomes what you're doing, and so how can you really say something is too much? So it's like, if you don't ever experience that suffering, if you don't ever experience that pain, you don't get to pass the limit of your comfort. And that pain is it's not only physical pain. Pain can be emotional too, which has to do with your comfort zones and what your beliefs are and all that stuff. And
Exactly.
So yeah.
And that's where that growth really comes from, is going through, like, think about the gym. When you're working out, you need to hit failure so you grow. That's what makes you grow. You know what I'm saying? But you got to push through. A lot of people, they just stop, oh, okay, I did that many reps, and they just stop. They started feeling pain, but like, if you keep going, you push, that's when you really start growing. So it's really, really interesting. I think we touched up on some great topics. I think I got everything that I wanted to brush up on. What about you?
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you on your podcast for a while. I had a good time.
Yeah, it's always fun. I love doing these. All right, perfect. Well, anyways, if anybody wants to reach out to Kef, you can find him on facebook.com/Kef.Posang, Keff is spelled Keff. And you can also find me at facebook.com/Adrian.Lammersdorf. That's ADRIAN.LAMMERSDORF. You can also find my podcast on SoundCloud. It's called The Natural Podcast. And also on Instagram, that's going to be natural_fitness_ and then my name, Adrian. So you can find me there. If you have any questions, please reach out to either of us. We'd be more than glad to help you, with your spiritual journey. That's something we're both very passionate about, and we try to spread that on other people. So thank you guys for watching. And like we said, reach out to us if you need any help, and take care.
Have a good night.